The Cure. It was approximately 3:07 a.m. when I received the first call from an unknown number. I declined and went back to sleep. The next call came at 3:19 a.m., but once again I did not answer. As I lay in bed, I began to wonder who would repeatedly call me at 3 o'clock in the morning. I could not think of anyone, but just as I was about to fall back asleep, I got two text messages. The messages said, "Answer the phone, Alex," followed by, "If you do not answer, there will be severe consequences." My thoughts and imagination became chaotic. I could feel my heart beating rapidly. Then it happened. My phone went off again. As I sat there in bed and just stared at my phone as it continued to buzz, I was too nervous to answer the call, but I knew I had to pick it up. I slowly raised the phone to my ear, and with my shaken voice, I managed to say, "Hello?" The dark, sinister voice on the other end said, "Hello, Alex. We know what Dr. Johnson and you discovered in the laboratory this semester. We would like to discuss the implications of your breakthrough." Over the past 7 years, Dr. Johnson and I had completed over 10,000 hours of extensive research in an attempt to find the cure for cancer. There were multiple failed experiments, and two of our patients passed away, but we did not let that stop us from our goal. We accomplished our goal. We discovered the cure for cancer, and Harvard University planned to publish the results of our study. We could easily win the Nobel Prize for Psychology and Medicine. I never expected the results of these experiments to come with negative implications, though. As I sat there speechless on the phone, I began to receive an influx of messages from Dr. Johnson. He repeatedly said, "If you're on the phone, hang up immediately. I'm on the way to your house to get you." I instantaneously ended the call with a suspicious unknown caller. I began to become terrified. I had no clue what was going to happen. Dr. Johnson frantically entered my house and told me to quickly pack my backpack and suitcase with clothes and other items I thought were essential to be gone for a while. I tried to ask him what was going on, but he said he did not have time to talk right now and he would explain once we were on the road. Dr. Johnson and I rushed to his car. He peeled out of my driveway and asked him again, "Dr. Johnson, what's going on?" He started to explain that he also received several suspicious calls and that he believed the Federal Bureau of Investigation wanted to prosecute us because we were discovered the cure for cancer. As we drove away from the city, my heart continued to race. I was still in severe shock. I could not comprehend the situation. Would the government really attempt to imprison us or kill us because we found the cure for cancer? We were about 2 hours away from the city when Dr. Johnson started to become terrified. He claimed the vehicle behind us had been following us for the last hour. He swerved off the interstate and attempted to gain distance between us and the vehicle. I had only seen this stuff in movies before, but it quickly became my own reality. As the vehicle began to catch up with us, I started to get more and more nervous. The vehicle approached the passenger side of Dr. Johnson's truck. As the back window rolled down, I stared into the barrel of a weapon pointed at me. I thought this would be the end of my life. Dr. Johnson quickly turned down an alley just as the man fired his weapon. The bullet shattered our back window. As for now, Dr. Johnson and I were safe. 2 months passed into our original encounter with who we assumed to be the FBI. Dr. Johnson and I stayed in this abandoned factory about 4 hours outside of the city. We changed our appearance and ditched our cell phones, but I was still nervous. This life was not easy. We barely had enough cash to get food from the sketchy gas station down the road. I knew if the government wanted to capture us, they would eventually be able to find us, regardless of where we stayed. As I sat in the empty, lifeless factory, I began to wonder where Dr. Johnson and I would go from here, and if the researches we completed was even worth all the time spent in the lab. Dr. Johnson and I started to think about where we could go, if it was even remotely possible to start new lives in another state, or if the FBI would inevitably find the both of us. We planned to use the remainder of our money to take the train out west to start our lives over. I was skeptical of taking the train because I thought the FBI knew of our intentions to get away from Massachusetts. As we arrived at the station, we kept our heads low and successfully purchased tickets without being recognized. As we boarded the train, I noticed two blacked-out government vehicles approach the station. Several men jumped out of the vehicles and started to search the station for Dr. Johnson and myself. As the train started to move down the railroad tracks, I made eye contact with one of the men. He mouthed the words, "It's over, Alex." Dr. Johnson and I knew that we were doomed now. The FBI could easily be waiting for us at every train stop from Boston to Los Angeles. It seemed like we were running from our own death. The only thing good happening for us was that we had time to plan our escape from the train. As we watched out the train window, we saw two helicopters flying over the Appalachian Mountains. This could not be good for our fate. We quickly grabbed a map from the back of the seat in front of us to try to figure out which cities the train passed through and which would be the best for us to get off the train alive. Thankfully, going from Massachusetts to California gave us a lot of options. The hardest part was trying to outsmart the FBI. We planned to make our escape in Cincinnati, Ohio, in order to take the Ohio River into the Mississippi River, which would eventually lead us to the Gulf of Mexico. As we approached Cincinnati, I became more and more anxious. I knew the FBI would be ready for us at any stop. I also knew that the next few days ahead of us entailed a lot of traveling and sleepless nights, but Dr. Johnson and I remember why we started this chase: to cure innocent patients. As the train stopped in Cincinnati, Dr. Johnson and I allowed the other passengers to exit the train before us, to disguise our faces in the crowd. One by one, the train emptied, and it was our turn to make a run for it, without seeming too suspicious. We got off, put our sunglasses and hats on, and ducked into the crowds walking through the train station. I turned to Dr. Johnson. "Looks like we can breathe for a little bit." Apparently, I spoke too soon. From behind us, I could hear people yelling and gasping as two men pushed through the crowd, knocking over pedestrians. Time for us to make a run towards the river. We picked up the pace, running up any flight of stairs and rounding every corner we could find. The footsteps got louder and closer, but we tread ahead. We found the nearest exit and ran down the streets of Cincinnati towards the river. We made it all the way to the pier when we were cornered by the men. "This is it," I thought in my head, as the men pulled out their FBI badges and weapons. I began to reflect on all the research Dr. Johnson and I completed. Was it all for nothing? Why were we being punished for this profound breakthrough? All I could think about was the hundreds of doctors whom would attempt to discover what we had already found, and the millions of lives we could have saved. My thoughts were interrupted when I felt the cold metal barrel of one of the agent's weapons pressed against the back of my head. I looked at Dr. Johnson and saw the fear in his eyes. I did not know what would happen next for either of us, but I felt defeated. I whispered over to Dr. Johnson, "No matter what happens, we still found the cure, and I'll always be proud of our work together." The agent sternly told me to shut my mouth or he would end my life. That's when it happened. I heard multiple loud bangs, and my life flashed before my eyes, but I no longer felt the barrel on my head. Dr. Johnson and I slowly looked around and saw multiple extraterrestrial creatures surrounding us. I started to wonder if I had been shot in the back of the head, and this was a strange afterlife I would now experience, but this was all too real. Dr. Johnson and I looked at one another with panic on our faces. One of the creatures slowly approached us. I could not understand the creature, but it appeared as if he was attempting to communicate with us. He turned the knob on his helmet and began to translate his words into English. "Hello, Dr. Johnson and Alex. I am Ondi, leader of the Ventos Prime of the 7th Galaxy. You are very valued by our people, and we would like for you two to come with us," the creature stated. Dr. Johnson replied, "What if we refuse to come with you?" Ondi proceeded to say that we would experience great despair if we did not accompany him on the 100 million mile journey back to Ventos Prime. I slowly stood up and walked towards the spaceship that landed on the end of the pier. Dr. Johnson frantically yelled, "Alex, what are you doing?" I looked back at him and said, "Everyone dies, Dr. Johnson, but not everyone lives." He thought about my statement and shook his head with regret, but decided to join me on the spaceship. I thought the adventure to the other planet would take forever, but it only took 13 minutes. Once we arrived at Ventos Prime, the ramp lowered from the spaceship. Dr. Johnson and I heard the enormous amounts of clapping as we walked down the ramp. Ondi proceeded to introduce us to the people of Ventos Prime and told them that we were the two humans who discovered the cure for cancer. One of the creatures in the back of the crowd yelled, "Speech!" Dr. Johnson looked too nauseous to talk, so I decided to speak for the both of us. I would like to thank you all for the opportunity. I would like to thank you all for the support in our discovery. It took thousands of hours of hard, labor-intensive work, but it was all worth it. We are glad your planet finds our discovery to be beneficial. We look forward to what the future brings," I said. As I finished, Ondi asked if I could explain to his people what the cure for cancer was. He was astonished that two measly humans could find the cure when his people, with the most prestigious technology, could not discover what Dr. Johnson and I had. I said, "Well, it may be hard to believe, but the cure for cancer is the end piece of loaves of bread." The people of Ventos Prime burst into laughter. Dr. Johnson and I looked at one another in confusion because I had told the truth. That's when it happened. My alarm clock went off. I woke up and panicked and covered in sweat. It was just another nightmare. As I got out of bed, I rubbed my eyes and looked at my phone. I had 2 missed calls from 3:07 and 3:19 a.m.